Okay, we're here with Hayes Carll. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Record Kmag Yoyo is just out this week. And what is it? Is it Other American Stories?
Yeah, I wanted to cut off any potential sales in Canada and Europe.
Well, yeah, and well, your sweater certainly does that too.
Right, right.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Out this week, and like I've been listening to it a lot, and it's a really solid record from start to finish. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What is Kmag Yoyo?
It's a military acronym. It stands for Kiss My Ass, Guys, You're on Your own.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. We were writing the title track and flipping through a military dictionary, and that phrase popped out, and it seemed like an appropriate line for the character. And then as I was fumbling around trying to find a record title, that I just kept coming back to that one. I thought nobody's going to know what this means, and for some reason it seemed like a good idea to put something out that nobody would understand. Politics
and war seem to be amongst the themes of the record, and this whole idea of, well, and specifically in another one like you, there's this whole red state, blue state, MSNBC, Fox News thing going on. Is
Right.
that something as a Texan, as an American, that is on your mind a little more often than not?
Yeah, very much so. It's these days we seem to be a lot more polarized and sort of divided politically and socially, and you know, there's always been differences of opinion, but it seems right now there's not much room for middle ground, either far left or far right, and you've got these talking heads on TV all day kind of spreading that and that gap. And so I started out writing this song just sort of as about the blonde, I'm blanking out on her name now, but one of those sort of talking heads that goes out and condemns everything they don't agree with. And I thought, well, this is an attractive woman, and yet I can't, every time she opens her mouth, I just want to run away. And
Right.
I thought, well, what scenario, under what kind of situation could I ever be attracted to her? And so I started writing that song about that. I figured alcohol would help.
Right, and a romp probably upstairs in the hotel room would probably help, right, too.
Yeah.
But so, and the other thing is Afghanistan and the Taliban, and that's a recurring theme too. I mean, it's got to be tough, like 8 years of hearing about this war and no end in sight. I mean, what's your perspective on it?
Well, as far as hearing about it, we don't really.
Right.
And that's sort of the odd thing to me, is that we're at war. I actually met a girl the other night in Seattle who didn't know we were at war in Afghanistan. You know,
Wow.
and that may speak more to her intelligence than anything else. But it was you know, it's not one of those things where we're getting images every night on the news. We don't see the bodies coming home, and you don't really hear a lot about it. And so it's, in that regard, it's not something that's sort of hanging over everything. Where I notice it, though, is that on the road, and that we travel all over the country, and that every night I've got soldiers or families of soldiers that I talk to after the shows, and that's where it hits home, and I'm reminded of it. So, you know, this record, the reason I called it "In Other American Stories," was that it was based a lot on these people that I've been meeting out on the road the last couple of years, whether they've lost their jobs, whether they've got just come home from Iraq or Afghanistan, whatever, you know, the economy, whatever their situation is. It was taking some of those stories and loosely turning them into things that rhyme.
Yeah, and I'm actually impressed with how many words you can get into, you know, such tight spaces. It's quite a talent. Let's talk a bit about some of the other songs on the record. Stomping Haller, right off the top. I guess there's some pent-up Texas frustration going on.
Well, I started that when I was in Italy. Actually, I was sitting at dinner with these people, and they had those placemats that you can draw on.
Right.
And so I got this idea. I'm like James Brown, only white and taller, and all I want to do is stomp and holler. So I wrote that on this placemat because I was playing solo acoustic in these churches for a group of people that didn't speak English.
Wow.
And it was sort of hard to really connect with them on a intellectual level.
Right.
And I thought, you know, what they need here is just some good rock and roll, and I wasn't really delivering it like I should have. And so anyway, that was the idea, sort of a frustrated a singer/citizen
Right.
who's not happy with the state of the way things are going.
Hard out here. I imagine an artist such as yourself who's on tour constantly and constantly away from home is thinking about home a lot.
Yeah, it's I mean, that one's sort of tongue-in-cheek about life on the road, because this is what I always wanted to do. You know, I signed up to join the circus, and that's all I ever wanted, and I've been quite happy with all that entailed. But I do have a family now, and it makes it a little tougher, and so that's my lament that nobody wants to hear.
Are they able to come out on the road with you at all? Or are they able to?
Nah, this is no place for children and innocence.
Grand Parade, speaking of Innocence, is one of those songs that is actually like a toe tapper, and it's got more of a pop feel to it than any of the other songs. Is that something that you see in your future, doing more songs like Grand Parade, where, you know, potential crossover song, or just a little more attention to the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, it was sort of a conscious decision, that song, to do that. It's something that's not really in my wheelhouse,
right.
And we just started playing around with it with the band, and I thought, this sounds great, and it's not something I would normally try, but I wanted to give it a go, and I was real happy with how it turned out. You know, if we do more of that, I don't know, but I'd like to you know, try and challenge yourself along the way and hope it works.
I ask every songwriter that we sit down with, you know, what comes first for them, the melody or the song, and I imagine that it's probably different every time. But I saw somewhere that this record specifically, you had written a lot of the music first, right?
Yeah, it's in the past I started out as a solo singer-songwriter and didn't even have a band for the first, you know, 6-7 years of my career, and so I'd always made my records. The process would be I'd sit down with an acoustic guitar and write the songs,
right,
and then bring musicians into the studio, tell them my 3 chords that I was playing, and they would say, okay, well, this is what we can do with it. And I always felt like I was kind of limiting myself in a number of ways musically, because they were basing what they did on my limitations, and then also lyrically, because there was only so much I could do. I was putting music to the words rather than words to music, and I wanted to switch that up a little bit. And I'd had a touring band for the 3 or 4 years before that, and we'd been hitting it hard, and so I kind of took that opportunity to use them to help me find that musical groove, and we started with that and a lot of this record, and then came in and kind of wrote to the musical vibe.
Another Like You. Who's the girl that's singing off of you in that track?
Her name is Carrie Ann Hearst.
Yeah.
And Ann Coulter. That's who I was thinking of earlier. It was the blonde conservative talk show. Anyway, Carrie Ann Hearst, who's a singer-songwriter from Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh wow.
And she's going to go out and tour with us for the first couple months of this record, including up here in Toronto, and she's just a great singer-songwriter. She opened for me a couple years ago, and I was just blown away. And so when I was looking for a duet partner, I kind of went through the list of famous people that could help out my career, and I decided that it wasn't worth it, that she had the perfect voice.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Alison Krauss couldn't sing that song, or Nora Jones couldn't sing that song.
Yeah.
You kind of need that, I guess, brashness of her voice. The tone of her voice is actually what sort of sells the
and she
song.
has that in spades.
So Canadian content, the Corb Lund of, people say that you're the Corb Lund of Texas, and so no shock that Bottle in My Hand Corb shows up, and I know you guys have been friends for a while. What made you decide to make it a trio song that includes
Todd Snyder and
Corb? Yeah.
Well, I mean, basically those guys are my 2 favorite writers, and good friends, and you know, I anytime I get a chance to work with them or do anything with them, I usually jump at it. Yeah. And so I had this song, and I was playing through it, and I thought, I like the tune, but I'd really like to get different people involved and get some different perspectives on it. it just worked out where both of those guys not only were willing, but they seemed like the right guys for it as well, and it was a song not too far removed from the type of things that they write about.
Right.
And so it was fun for me to get to finally do something on tape with those guys.
You know, Todd's not traditionally a country writer. He's more of an alt country and folk writer.
Right.
But it's kind of like there's this all kinds of genre bending, not only on your record, but in music in general these days. There's, you know, people are just making good music. Do you think about, I'm going to put out a country record, I'm just going to put out some songs that I have in my mind and music that I have in my mind, and do you think about particular genres? Or
I've never thought about it, you know,
yeah.
and it's, you know, after the fact you get labeled whatever you get labeled.
Right.
But I've thought about maybe one day making a honky tonk record, like going in and consciously making a country record.
Right.
But none of the records I've made so far have I thought that's what I'm doing. You
right.
know, I just write the best songs I can and kind of try and surround myself with good musicians, and whatever direction it kind of steers is where it ends up. There's a lot of things that you write that you think are going to be rock songs and end up being folk ballads, and and vice versa, and you never know which way it's going to go.
And I guess for a singer-songwriter and not a member of a band, that's at the core of whatever you're doing, and then however it comes out, you're just surprised that that's how your music was interpreted, or your song was interpreted, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I consider myself a songwriter, and then if it's, you know, I have a twang, so a lot of times it gets labeled as country.
Right.
But you know, you just kind of want the song to end up in the place that it fits best musically, and then let people sort it out afterwards.
I don't celebrate Christmas, but if I did, I'd be really sad about grateful for Christmas. It doesn't have the typical excitement around Christmas that many Christmas songs do. It's a dark song.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, I wrote it with the idea that I grew up in a big family, and we would sort of rotate Christmases between Houston and Waco every year, depending on whose side of the family we were going to, and we'd have these huge reunions with just dozens and dozens of aunts and uncles and old people and kids, and now as I get older, since the last time we did that, there are 3 people that were at that reunion that won't be at the next one. You know, that they passed away, and it just got me to thinking that not only does time go by and this dynamic changes, but my role in that changes. That at some point, if I want these traditions to carry on, if you know, that I'm going to be responsible for that. I'm not just the kid who shows up anymore. I'm not the teenager who comes and complains and tries to sneak out. At some point, I'm going to be the guy who has to arrange for everyone to get there and to do all the cooking and all these things. And so it's really just a song about kind of the passing of time, but also your role in a family and how that changes over time, which sort of maybe seems like common sense, but it sort of struck me just recently that, oh yeah, I'm no longer that
little guy,
that kid who just shows up and eats cake. And it's like at some point I'm going to be in charge of this show, and if I want this very important tradition to continue, that I'm going to have some hand in that.
Well, you're on the Twitter, so maybe that's a way for you to get in touch with your family and friends to make
I'm
sure
on
that
the Twitter. I can't say I've figured it out yet. I've learned how to type stuff in and send it, but it's still a mystery to me. I need to take a class or something.
Is that something though that you think is good for your music? Obviously, that you're able to connect with your fans and talk to them wherever they are and answer their questions, or is it daunting and scary that all these people are following you?
It's a little of both. I mean, I like the idea of being in touch with my fans and being able to get instant feedback for the most part, and to let them know what I'm up to. Because there's a lot of times, if I was playing at Levon Helm's house the other day, and outside of the 200 people that were there, no one would know about that. Well, this is a really cool event for me, and I want people to know about it, or things like that. On the other hand, there's a part of me that's always appreciated the mystery of the people that I listen to. It's like I didn't hear Bob Dylan coming out and telling me what he had for breakfast that day. And so it's a fine line, between you want people to feel involved and to know what's going on and be able to share it with you, but you don't want to bore them with the tediousness of your life at the same time.
The last track on the record is "Hide Me," and it's one of my favorite tracks on the record because it's just you and a Rhodes. Is it you playing the Rhodes, or is
No, I'm playing an acoustic guitar, and
there is a Rhodes?
Yeah,
though.
and there's a Rhodes. It plays itself.
It plays itself. What are you listening to? What when you want to sit down and chill out and listen to some artists? What inspires you to make music? Aside from the obvious, I mean, you mentioned Dylan and Town Van Zandt, and I get all that, but are there more contemporary artists that you're really into?
Yeah, there's a few. I appreciate songwriters, and that's
Right.
really, anything else I sort of occasionally stumble on by accident.
Right.
But that musically I enjoy, but I don't really search it out. I sort of live in my own little bubble musically,
Yeah.
where I go and find poets and writers and guys that can put a different slant on things and make me see things in a different way.
Right.
And that's kind of always what I'm searching. So guys like Corb, Todd Snyder, there's a great Winnipeg songwriter named Scott Nolan. Those are the kind of guys
Right.
I tend to gravitate towards, whether it's country or rock or folk or whatever genre.
Right.
I just look for good lyricists and kind of start there.
Cool. Thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks
Man, my pleasure.
Thanks for a great record, and next time we got to get you a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey or something to wear on your.
I'm all for it. Let's
on
have
your next
a
record.
Canadian version.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
All right,
Thanks a lot.
thank
Explore Music wears English Laundry apparel.